What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven here with your afternoon snap, and today is the Golden Gauntlet World Championship, which I did compete in. Unfortunately, I did not do super well, so instead, we're going to take a look at a bunch of players that are doing well in this event. We're going to look at everyone that is currently 3-1 or better. And there are only 4 rounds so far in this event. It is going to be a 7-round event in total, plus a cut to the top 16. So I'm not sure what that top 16 is going to be, but there are a bunch of players playing a bunch of really cool decks here. And honestly, they're all great Marvel snappers. And I think that all of these decks have what it takes to potentially win this tournament if the cards fall in the right way. So I'm going to take a look at all of them. There's 50 decks that I'm going to cover in this video. It is going to be a lot, and I probably won't spend that much time as we go through, and we'll see some duplicates of strategies and things like that, and there will be things that there aren't that much to talk about. So without further ado, let's get to the deck list. But actually, no, there is one more further ado here. I want to talk about one point, and that is, this is a deck that won a Golden Gauntlet World Championship qualifier, and it contains both Mercury and Moonstone. This is still a pretty good archetype. In fact, Cougar, who we are going to look at their deck list first after this, Cougar was playing a Mercury Moonstone deck on the ladder right before this tournament and is like top 5 infinite, or was potentially even rank 1 infinite as this tournament was about to start. So this was a deck that a lot of players were considering and building the meta around. And unfortunately, there was a bug with Mercury and Moonstone. It still is in the game currently. And because of that, the tournament organizers decided, okay, you can play Mercury or you can play Moonstone, but you cannot play a deck that contains both Mercury and Moonstone. And I think that more players are going to opt to play Mercury because of its ability to shut down move strategies, and that means that you're not playing Moonstone, and Moonstone is kind of a very important piece of what this strategy is trying to do. Every card other than Cannonball and Spectrum interact with Moonstone. So this archetype we aren't going to see represented, and that might have other implications over the rest of the field. But I just wanted to cover that real quickly, that we won't specifically be seeing Mercury and Moonstone together, but it's still a reasonable deck. And then, speak of the devil, we are going to take a look at Cougar's deck first, and I know I'm blocking a card here. I'm going to get to that in just a second. I'm intentionally blocking a card from this deck list because I think it is really interesting, and then I'm going to move my camera, but Cerebro 4 is what Cougar decided to play instead, with Cerebro being that card that allows you to go over the top while still putting Mercury into a shell that is synergistic, and you can get even more oomph out of your Mercury, just not going to be playing it in the Moonstone variety. This deck also plays Shadow King, which is good if people are doing man spider things, and a lot of different ways that people can go over the top, including zombie packages and things. And I guess now it is time to reveal that behind me is a zombie Scarlet Witch. And I might even, scroll this down one and make myself a little bit tinier here and just fit myself up at the top of the screen. All right, perfect. So, Zombie Scarlet Witch in Cerebro 4 is the innovation here from Cougar that has brought him to a 4-0 start to this tournament, and I love it. I think that this is super cool. I think that there's a lot of cool Cerebro cards that you don't necessarily recognize as Cerebro cards immediately. Like, nobody plays Rocket Raccoon in Cerebro 5, but you totally can. It's just a 1/5. And similarly, Carnage can get played in like Cerebro 6 or Cerebro 4, depending on what you're trying to do with it. There's not great things that line up right now, but in the past, playing Carnage to destroy a Bucky Barnes was something that Cerebro 6 decks had access to, for instance. Now, with Zombie Scarlet Witch here, you are really just trying to play 2 cards in the location after you play the Zombie Scarlet Witch, and that will give you another 4 power card, though there are some different things that you can do instead. You could potentially Prodigy your Zombie Scarlet Witch, and you can use cards like Hydra Bob, Nocturne, and Mercury, and Spider-Man, all to move out of the Zombie Scarlet Witch location, so that way you can keep growing the horde to even bigger numbers. This is a really neat innovation. And one other thing, like kind of to that mind, is like, yes, you don't want to have a big horde when you have the Cerebro, but it is interesting to take a look at these potential Cerebro strategies that have room to pivot outside of that. And I think that that is also a really underexplored archetype. Like, what if you played a sort of Cerebro 2 that also had Silver Surfer in it? There definitely is some potential overlap and some things that can be made to work. But I don't want to spend too much time on any individual deck list, like I said, but I think Cougar is like a main storyline through this tournament, having won the most recent Golden Gauntlet qualifier, number 3, and having their deck banned from them, potentially the deck that Cougar was looking to play banned from him, a few hours before we were required to submit deck lists for this tournament, and still came up with something sweet and came up with with a good start, with a 4-0 record to kick off this event. Another 4-0 player. This is a fairly standard archetype. I played against 2 of these in my video yesterday. We have a Legion Lockdown combo deck with Lockjaw being another way to go over the top. You've got Jubilee, Blink, and Lockjaw to grab these big cards out of your deck, and then you have Legion, War Machine, and Storm to potentially lock your opponent out. Those are the 2 game plans we're going for. We are going to see this deck again. I believe that there are actually 2 undefeated players playing this archetype, and here is another strategy we are certainly going to see again throughout this video. I think that this is like a stock list, and this is, I would say, this potentially is where I should have even started this video. I wanted to start and talk about Cougar, but this, I think, is the most known quantity going into this tournament. These exact 12 cards, this exact makeup, yeah, it's Move. And it has Spider-Punk in it now with the new Season Pass card. I think that Spider-Punk is pretty good. Just the numbers on it are quite solid. One thing that I think is very interesting about this deck is, will anyone try to innovate on top of this while still playing basically the same deck? And what I'm mostly getting at here is Cloak. Cloak is symmetrical, meaning your opponent will also get to utilize it, and if your opponent is also playing a move deck, Cloak is a very, very bad card to spend your 2 energy on in the mirror match. Might not matter, you might just always want the ability to high roll with Cloak yourself, but I'm curious if we'll see anyone replace that for like Aranya or Web Sling or Punch Man, One Punch Man, what is it called? Oh gosh. I'm not going to remember it because I'm trying to remember it, but Iron Fist. Okay, there we go. If anyone will replace Cloak out for that. Also, I have been hesitant to put Cloak in my Cerebro 4 decks, but Cougar did have Cloak in their Cerebro 4 deck, so we'll see how players sort of adapt to this being the number one deck, or if we're just going to see a lot of players playing it. Honestly, I played this deck and completed my weekend missions, and this was, I think, the easiest time I have had completing weekend missions in a long time, at the very least in the last 2 months. But I went 8-0. I won my first 8 games that I played with the deck, and it certainly made me reconsider what I wanted to play for this tournament. The reason that I did not want to play this is I figured it is the most known quantity and people are potentially going to tech for it specifically, and I'm not convinced that I would play it the best in the mirror matchup, so we'll see who comes out on top here. But Nathiel, obviously a great Marvel snapper. I can't quite get everything on the screen, so I'm not sure if I should cut off the bottoms of the names of cards. I don't really want to cut off players' names, so I think I'm going to cut off the bottoms of the names of these cards instead, so that way we can still see the names and celebrate the players that are currently in the top 50. There's a lot to get through here, so let's move along here. I'm sure we will see Move again to talk about it once more. Next, we have Angel Sword playing Thanos, and there's definitely some things that we have to talk about in this list. It's Wiccan Thanos, that much is fairly straightforward, but one thing that we do typically see a little bit more of in Wiccan decks is 2-cost cards that generate cards, and we don't have that here. All we have is King Eitri plus the stones in terms of card replacement, because most of those stones are going to draw cards and help you fill out your curve. And then we are pumping up our stones with Marvel Boy and Phastos potentially. Adam Warlock actually can replace itself as well, I suppose, if you play it after a stone and continue to win that location. Then we have Armor and Cosmo as some cheap tech that might get played early on the curve, but Armor kind of doing double duty here. It is looking to both protect your stones from Killmongers, and it is looking to, and potentially like your Thanos or whatever from a Shang-Chi, though I'm not sure how many Shang-Chis we'll see today. This is the first one, but I'm not sure that we're going to see too many more. Armor also is a proactive tech card against Arnim Zola decks and Destroy decks. So those are the other reasons that you're playing it. And then a bunch of other tech as well. Cosmo, Eliath, Enchantress, Shang-Chi, in addition to the stones and the interesting game things that they can provide. Have not seen this sort of like classic Thanos deck really since like the first or second Golden Gauntlet. And I'm not even talking about the Golden Gauntlet qualifiers. I'm talking about like the first 2 Golden Gauntlet events. Thanos was a little bit more popular, and he's fallen off a little bit, but Angel Sword bringing it back, and we will see one more Thanos in this top 11 section, but we will also see another take on Storm, War Machine, Legion Lockdown here. This one with a little bit more of an attempt to, so I don't see any Electro in this deck. So just playing some like cheap cards in the early game, Black Hat, Hydra Bob, Iron Patriot, sort of having a different angle that you can attack from. And it's sort of like an underlooked thing too, but if you can just go Black Cat, Hydra Bob, like play a 1-cost card that is an Ebony Maw, play Black Hat or Hydra Bob, then play Herbie or Iron Patriot, and then storm that location, potentially even with a War Machine to back it up, you could skip turn 5 and then just play the Infinite, and that is definitely something that a deck like this is looking to do, or it is looking to follow it up with Iron Patriot. But you're potentially going like Black Cat into Iron Patriot, into Storm, into your Iron Patriot card with the discount, skip turn 5, and then play an Infinite. But definitely a smaller look at this Infinite War Machine archetype, but with a lot more tech and a lot more ways to battle for priority, which is good for Juggernaut and winning locations with Storm. In 6th position here, the positions don't really matter. These are all 4-0 decks that we're going to take a look at. But from Zapgaze, we have Cerebro 3, 2 different Cerebro representations in the undefeated decks so far. I do like Rogue as a interesting card that you can add into Cerebro 3 right now, because Rogue was recently buffed up to 3 power, and it's a little bit awkward because you might be thinking, okay, well, there's a lot of things you don't want to steal with Rogue, right? But as I showcased in my video yesterday, I was initially considering Rogue because it just seems like Ongoing could have been a pretty good deck back when you could play Mercury Moonstone, and I moved away from it today because I wasn't sure if it would, but there's still a lot of things that Rogue can catch. Just in the decks that we've looked at so far, it can catch an opposing Cerebro. That's obviously great. Also, after you've rogued something, you can use Mystique to copy whatever Rogue has stolen. You can also catch a War Machine, and then your opponent doesn't have War Machine. They can't play their Infinite, and they can't lock you out of the game. So that can be very powerful. Rogue can also just take, like Sarah, that we haven't seen that yet, but it can just take, I guess, did we look at an Iron Man deck? No, we didn't. But like, people are still going to play Iron Man decks, and there are still a lot of things that Rogue can take. And if you like really need to, you can steal an opponent's Ajax or Devil Dinosaur, like whatever weird big thing that they're doing. And another kind of cool one card that just totally wrecks Cerebro, there's nothing Cerebro can do about it typically, is Red Skull. And Rogue can now steal Red Skull, send that buff back to your opponent, but the reason that is scary is because otherwise all your cards are getting buffed up, and then Cerebro no longer works. The rest of this deck is like fairly straightforward. Scarlet Witch to change location, Luke Cage to protect against bad locations, Cosmo for tech, Makari, Bastion is a nice little combo, and M'Baku has been a recent addition to Cerebro decks. I've also seen it paired with Lockjaw, but Rogue, just for a little bit more tech, a little bit more answers, is what Zapgaze has gone with. Now, we see that Teebs, I said there was another Thanos deck. I might have said that, but this is like kind of a Thanos deck, right? Thanos, RHM. We've seen this reasonably before, but we have not seen Spider-Punk just as like a good stuff card. And I like it. I was actually considering the implications of Spider-Punk as a good stuff card recently. There's a few things that it does against, again, just the decks that we've already seen. Oh, also Rogue could steal a Madam Web. But Spider-Punk against Cerebro is a way that you can impact the power of cards that can't get stopped by Cosmo or other locations that protect, or other things that protect a location. It can get reset by Shadow King, of course, but I do think that is worth considering, because once you take a little bit of power away from a Cerebro card, then it's no longer getting the Cerebro buff, so you're potentially stealing, like, well, you're stealing 2 power, but then you're also making it get another -3 or 6, depending on how many Cerebro effects that they have. So I do think that Spider-Punk is just a cool effect for that capacity. It is also really good to shrink a Human Torch before they have moved it once. It's tough to do, but if you can get some nice value there, and the rest of this deck is just all the tech. We've got Cosmic Ghost Rider and Enchantress and Legion at the 5 slot, plus Eliath, all the things that the Thanos stones bring, Shadow King, Mercury, Valentina, and Merlin. We're just doing some Thanos things here. That has brought Teebs to 4-0. Now we have a fairly straightforward zombie deck. Not too much to say about this here. I will note that this deck is playing Absorbing Man as well, which can copy your tech, though it's really just Cannonball here, but you could still Mercury into turn 5 Cannonball, turn 6 move the Mercury, Absorbing Man Cannonball in a different location. Those things are possible if you want to go for a more tech-heavy game plan. And then we have all of the zombie cards. Zombie Fantastic, Scarlet Woman, Sentry, and Power Man. So we're going, oh, and the Hunger. So we're going all in on the zombie game plan. Pretty straightforward there from ACP, and kind of a throwback deck here from Honifer. We have another, fairly classic deck, but some funky stuff in here with the new 3/7 Debris making an appearance in this Werewolf Annihilus deck. And just debating, can I zoom in a different way? Oh shoot, what if I had done this? Oh, I think that's just going to impact this window. But what if I do this? Sorry, I just realized that I could do this right now. Okay. I think I will start to, change the layout here. But this is because I want to get all the cards on the screen, especially if there's players that don't know what Annihilus is, because we haven't seen Annihilus in a little bit, really. I mean, it's seen some play here and there, especially but this is a pretty it feels like a classic archetype at this point, because I haven't really seen it at the top levels for a bit, but I have seen a little bit of a resurgence of it recently. There's a lot of cool things that this deck can do, so I gotta go over some of them. King Eitri grabs your Agamotto spells, and the main Agamotto spell that you are looking for is Images of Icon. You can use Images of Icon to turn the junk from the Hood, Yellow Jacket, the Sentries, the Void, and Debris Rocks and Sam Wilson's Shield all into legitimate threats in a variety of powerful ways. Similarly, you can use Merlin's Polymorph spell, and then all the while you have a little bit of a junk game plan with Viper, in addition to Annihilus, sending over the Sentry and the Hood. One other thing that you can do with Yellow Jacket is make your stones into negative power cards, so you can send those over. And along with Viper, just giving your opponent as much junk as you possibly can and bouncing around a Werewolf by Night. This deck has a lot of different ways that it can win, including clogging your opponent out, making big things, and just going crazy over the top with big Images of Icon plays that people really do not see coming. Next up, we have, oh cool, it adjusted the window size here, and we've got a crazy deck here. Now this is 3-1. I want to real quick make sure I looked at all the 4-0 decks. Okay, no, I missed one right here. I may have just, okay, no, 2 of these got out of order when I was prepping the video, so apologies there. So we're going to take a look at 2 more 4-0 deck lists first. And this first one here is from Uncanny Ben. We do have another Silver Surfer deck coming up soon, so a little bit of a spoiler, but this is another take on Silver Surfer plus tech, which is what I was playing in the event, but I was playing totally different cards and totally different tech. We have the Mercury here to play around the move, and we have Cannonball to go along with that Mercury. Absorbing Man, I also think, is really good in Silver Surfer and has kind of fallen by the wayside, and people haven't been playing it, but just using Absorbing Man to grab a bunch of Broods. As a reminder, that's the interaction. Turn 3 Brood, turn 4 Absorbing Man, and you get 2 more 5-power Broodlings that then also get pumped up by Silver Surfer later, and I mean, it's just a 4/15. That's just a ridiculously powerful thing that you can do. Copycat gives you some face down cards. Your opponent won't know exactly what to play around here, and Hope Summers just gives you a little bit of ramp to smooth out the curve. There's not much tech going on in this deck, to be fair. It can do the Cannonball Absorbing Man thing that we were talking about, but it's mostly just Mercury and Cannonball that we're trying to use to get by, and those can be helpful depending on what type of game plan your opponent is attacking from, to have just a slightly different angle, and it's much better suited than my build against the sort of big decks that we've seen with Legion and War Machine and the Infinite. Having Cannonball as a way to answer those decks and then still win another location with your Silver Surfer shenanigans can definitely be a successful game plan. Then we've got Watermelon. playing the exact same deck that we've already looked at. Like I said, there's going to be other people playing this deck, but we're just going to look at all of them just for a second here. Now we have a different take on move, a surfer move with a little bit of tech in the form of Echo and Red Guardian and Shadow King and Mercury even. Also Zorn. Zorn moving around your cards is interesting both for Nocturne and Spider-Punk, and allows you to pump up your Hydra Stomper, so you're going to want to move as many of your cards as possible. The interesting thing here, I did not think that Zorn was going to see play in this tournament because Zorn also will move your opponent's cards. So maybe there is a good proactive strategy where you're able to like lock your opponents out of a location with Zorn depending on which deck they're playing, allow them to like not play Zorn or not play Torch into Madam Web or something. But still, I find Zorn to be a little bit awkward because it is going to mean that you're just like giving your opponent access to free moves. And I think that that is a scary thing to do, but we'll see how this deck performs for the rest of it here. This is a kind of like Wiccanless Wiccan deck, I guess I would call it. It's a super giant deck, and it's really just hoping to be like fairly straightforward and do good stuff while not doing anything like super incredible. It's just trying to be consistent, and even in the cutting of Wiccan, it's really just looking to have like medium power all the time with no real high roll potential other than the Iron Patriot, potentially Cassandra Nova against Arishem, Negasonic, nabbing a really good card. For the most part, though, this deck is like, just trying to do baseline, like get 20 points in 2 locations and have a little bit of interaction that can potentially stop your opponent from doing the same. Here we do have an Iron Man Moonstone deck that doesn't have access to Mercury, unfortunately, but it is just trying to go over the top with 2 main combos here. The first one is the Ancient One plus Iron Man, grabbing that Tal Mandala and then getting multiple Iron Man effects in the same location. And the other way that you can get multiple Iron Man effects in the same location is by using Mystique, copying Iron Man plus Moonstone. You can have one location with Iron Man and then one location with Moonstone and Mystique copying that Iron Man. That can bring a lot of points for sure. This deck is obviously quite low on tech, though. That would be the main drawback of a deck like this, unable to play Mercury. Also, I will note, it says that this player is 2-1. It's because they received a bye during likely the first round. Actually, I guess any round is possible. It means they received at least one bye. So if you see that again, just know that that's what we are looking at there. Next, we have another very similar deck, and this one even more similar to the winning Moonstone Spectrum deck that we looked at from a previous event. No Mercury here, obviously, but a little more tech with Juggernaut and Goose giving you some location control, and still similar abilities to go over the top compared to the previous deck that we just looked at. No Tal Mandala, but Spectrum can pump up Captain Carter and the rest of your ongoing cards, and all of that can be quite strong. Oh, I guess I already scrolled down here. We have Tuscan Chileno on a Wiccan Galactus Fantastic Four First Steps deck. This is a strategy that we've seen a decent amount of before. It's Quicksilver, Wiccan, and then all of the 2s here are creating cards, or they are Victoria Hand. I actually did not notice the Vicky Hand, to be totally honest. That is not something that is typically actually played in this archetype, but it can pump up the cards for Mirage, Iron Patriot, and Hawkeye, not for Merlin, and then a bunch of tech, Mobius, Mercury, and Cosmic Ghost Rider. Cool. Now we have a little bit more of a straightforward Iron Man Onslaught deck that is not playing Blink, interestingly enough, but just playing, this is basically like Tribunal-less Tribunal. And again, we're looking to go over the top here using Prodigy and Iron Man to get like multiple copies of Iron Man out there. No Ravonna here either, but Magic and Luna Snow to grab an additional turn and additional energy. Another thing that this deck is potentially looking to do is copy Mr. Fantastic a whole bunch of times. Go Mr. Fantastic, Onslaught, Mystique, Moonstone, something like that, or Mr. Fantastic, Onslaught, Mystique, Prodigy for just triple Onslaught in that location, and then a bunch of Mr. Fantastic hands at those two side lanes. We've got another Arishem here. This is Thanosless Arishem, and a little bit more of a straightforward Arishem curve. We've got the twos, Iron Patriot and Valentina, that create cards and are just good cards to play on the second turn of the game before you have access to additional Arishem energy. Then on turn 4, we unlock Galacta and Negasonic Teenage Warhead. You can Juggernaut on turn 3 as well, especially if you are protecting your Iron Patriot. And then we've got Cosmo, Legion, and Alioth as tech on the top of the curve, with Isan as an additional way to just cheat out on energy. And I don't think so. We have seen a little bit of Mobius. I was curious how much Mobius we would see, how much Shang-Chi we would see, and how much Stardust we would see. And the third one I am bringing up right now because it is a way to stop Isan. But I don't know that really anybody is playing Stardust in this tournament. So that might not really be something that we have to consider. Now, here is another Thanos deck, and this one is running the Strange Supreme. No 1-cost cards in this deck, and honestly kind of light on the 2-cost cards. This list definitely feels like a throwback here, though, with a bunch of tech. Over half of this deck is tech, right? Yeah, 7 cards are tech, plus the Thanos Stone. So a lot of tech in this deck, and then Strange Supreme and Merlin to fill out your curve, Strange Supreme just to grab another way to take advantage of those stones. Bear, I did see, was 3-1 in this event with his trusty Victoria hand. Bear has been playing Victoria hand every single time I've seen him play it. He won the Snap Wars League with it. He won a Russian tournament series with it as well, and now he's 3-1 with Victoria hand in the Golden Gauntlet World Championship. I definitely think he can continue to have success with that strategy. Migu playing the same Moonstone Iron Man deck that we've looked at. Again, no Mercury. We'll see if it hurts these players. A Sasquatch deck from Buff Captain America, please. This is, okay, we're looking at like Hitmonkey Bounce. All right, Hitmonkey Bounce with Werewolf by Night and Sasquatch as big cards in it. This is, yeah, something that I think is like very easy to underestimate as well. One cool thing about Bounce is its ability to toss priority and then have a powerful Shadow King play on the final turn. You're probably looking to play like Shadow King, Hitmonkey on the final turn alongside a bunch of free 1-cost cards that you've bounced with Beast, or you are just looking to play like Shadow King and replay some of your things, maybe Shadow King Sasquatch if you dumped a bunch of cards on the previous turn. There's a lot of different angles this deck can take. It's very dynamic and very skill intensive, but good bounce players. So I had a commenter recently, and I think they were new to the game, and they were asking like, oh, what can I play with these cards? They were asking me on my Discord, and it's interesting because like so many of these cards, this deck does have like some Series 5 cards in it with Merlin and Toxin and Hitmonkey and possibly Sasquatch, Werewolf by Night, but still like there's a lot that the bounce archetype can do with not that much. It's like a very, so here's what I'm getting at. It's like an easy deck to obtain for newer players because there's so many older and Series 1, 2, and 3 cards in it, but it is not a good deck for newer players because of how skill intensive it is and how deceptively skill intensive it is as well. Here is our first Sauron deck. We have not seen Sauron yet, but this is also an archetype that I was expecting to see in fairly big numbers. We've got Sauron and 0 to remove the abilities from our cards, as well as Enchantress doing double duty as like a tech card and a way to remove our cards' abilities, really just from Lizard, Red Skull, and Starbrand. Those are all pretty powerful cards to get some additional, just to get a lot of points out of, right? But also, Red Skull, already talked about it. It's good against Cerebro, and that is like secretly one of the reasons to play this deck, is that you have access to a really tough card for the Cerebro players to deal with. And then it's just like a lot of points and power, and you've got Supergiant, which is just really good against a lot of things for a lot of different reasons. It's good against move. It's good against anything that is trying to, like, it stops your opponent from playing Limbo on turn 5 or Serra on turn 5, so it can really stop with a lot of people's big setups, and your setup is just like, I'm going to play this big dumb thing. Plus the deck gets to play Enchantress, and Ongoing is still potentially going to be a fairly represented deck, despite the nerf to Mercury Moonstone not being able to get played with each other. That honestly just means that the Ongoing decks might be even stronger, because now they're not playing a tech card, they're just playing a big card that they get to go over the top with, right? They'll just play like another Prodigy. This is an interesting take on Jocasta. So Silver Surfer just kind of shoehorned in here. There's nothing that is... Oh, okay, we've got Seabass. We've got Sebastian Shaw to take a little bit advantage of Silver Surfer. And honestly, we are... So people often say now that Sebastian Shaw is like the 3rd or 4th best Silver Surfer card, right? Because best is just always going to be Brood. Then we have Captain Carter, and then it might be Human Torch First Steps, and then probably Sebastian Shaw. However, that's only talking about the +2 from Silver Surfer. This deck has a few different ways to give cards +1 multiple times even. If you can go for a Jocasta Prodigy, awesome, and Elaine, and then just have Seabass in a location by itself, and maybe you also have like Omega Sentinel in the Jocasta lane. This can actually grow a Sebastian Shaw to be quite large, and yeah, this is fun. We have a little bit of tech here with both Shadow King and Mercury, and I do like the Jocasta strategy's ability to go over the top with Omega Sentinel and multiple Jocastas. This deck is only really ever getting 2 Jocastas at a location. It's never hitting the triple Jocasta, you know, in most scenarios. So it's not doing anything like super crazy, but I do think that Jocasta is still like an underexplored card. If I had a little bit more time, I might have tried to make a Jocasta. I would have never found this specifically. So this is a very cool take here from Pixel Guy. And then Silver Surfer kind of just being a backup game plan here that isn't really pumping too much stuff. And then you just have some solid cards. Herbie can be ramp, or it can just be some more points on the board. You can... So this is an interaction I'll just detail real quick because I did not realize it at first, but when you activate Herbie and then you activate a Jocasta later, so Herbie changes his activate every single turn, but once you activate him, he stops changing his ability every turn, which means if you reactivate him with Jocasta, he will then continue to use that same ability, which is really good if you have either the... I guess it's the Mr. Fantastic ability or the Human Torch doubling ability. You can double Herbie a bunch of times and just get a bunch of power in your Jocasta location. Now we've got a little bit more of a typical Jocasta deck that we've seen with Jocasta and Invisible Woman, plus a bunch of end of turn cards, Sunspot, Havoc, and Thena, but with Omega Sentinel as a different angle of attack. And this is something that is really interesting because, like, we still see the Hydra Bob in the deck. Oh, also Spider Ham is an activate now, so that can get some use with Jocasta. But yeah, we don't see the Fantasticar really in these lists anymore, even though there are a bunch of cards. I mean, some decks also play Black Cat and stuff. We see a little bit of a concession to playing some tech here as well with Shadow King and Juggernaut, and that's fine. Those are both really powerful, high impact cards. And Omega Sentinel can also be really high impact. Sorry, I'm just you can hear it in my voice. I'm going to take a quick water break here. Ajax from Dragon, also a little bit of a throwback. We see a little bit of tech here, Mercury, Shadow King, and then also Super Scroll as a concession to those ongoing decks that might be pretty popular. And no energy cheat. Doesn't want to mess around with Mobiuses at all, potentially, and just wants to play a fair game of Marvel Snap. A lot of 4s in this deck to be playing a fair game of Marvel Snap, so that is interesting. But the Super Scroll is like either a card that you're playing it or you don't care about it. Like, it either wins the match or you just don't care about it at all. So from that perspective, it does make some sense. Invisible Woman here is to hide a Shadow King or hide a Hazmat, and could potentially also hide other cards from Red Guardian or something like that, and is honestly probably a fine card to just grab a 0/0 copy of with Anti-Venom. Anti-Venom, I apologize, is one way that you are trying to cheat on energy and stuff, but other than that, a pretty just like straightforward curve. Not too much tech, but relevant tech, like Man-Thing, good against the Cerebro. Hazmat can be interesting against Cerebro as well. Shadow King is obviously big in here for move, though interestingly, we have not seen that much move yet. We have seen a ton of Mercury. Maybe that's why we haven't seen that much move, or maybe players decided to play against it. I think it's because we've seen so much Mercury. I think that there was a lot of move in the tournament as a whole. Here's some move. There we go. Right on cue there. I believe there were about 160 to 180 players that actually showed up for the tournament. And I believe that there was something like 20 players playing this deck list. Now, this deck is slightly different. We see an Enchantress here that has been... Oh, we also see Eliath. Okay, sure. In those spots, otherwise, we've been seeing Spider-Punk and Juggernaut. Not a crazy departure, but Evazord choosing to play Enchantress, both to deal with Mercury and just the ongoing decks in general. From Fudge, we have this is not a Victoria hand deck. This is a, like, Killmonger death deck, I guess. No, it's not really even that. This is just, okay, this is like Millless Mill, I suppose. I don't even really know what people call this deck, but it's okay. I guess it's just like a mid-range deck that has death to go over the top in a somewhat interesting way. Does the Luna Snow Ice Cube destroy itself? It does. Yeah. So that will discount your death when you melt your Ice Cube on the final turn. Your Lady Death Striking or your Miserying your Hood, and potentially your Surge even as well. So, and then of course some of your opponent's cards. So that's the idea there, is that Lady Death Strike and Killmonger are like reasonable cards to be playing right now regardless, and if you get some additional value out of using those abilities yourself. We're also playing Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi, kind of a sleeper card, like, as weird as that is to say. I think this is only like the third Shang-Chi that we've seen, but we have seen a lot of people playing Infinite and Galactus First Steps and Thanos. Thanos has the Soul Stone, but still, we've seen a lot of Shang-Chi-able cards for how many Shang-Chis we've actually seen. Shang-Chi, obviously a little bit worse now that it only kills one card, but still, like, how many cards do you really need to kill if people aren't putting multiple Infinites into the same location, right? We've seen this deck before. Sometimes I see it go a little bit more into the mill aspect. This is not really playing mill at all. It's really just playing Gladiator to discount death at that point, right? Yeah, I guess so. Okay. And Gladiator also to win your Iron Patriot battle. Cool. Now we have Arishem. That's really all that this is. This is Arishem. We see some new cards here. We see our first Stardust. We also see our first Danger, which when that card released, I did note that it did seem like an Arishem card because it's a 4-cost card. You can play it into your Iron Patriot location as well because of that. Stardust, same thing, and Negasonic Teenage Warhead as well. Galactus, Fantastic Four First Steps, is a pretty cool card in Arishem. If you are not playing the Isan or the Blob or the, what's the other one? Thanos / Agamotto. Galactus is just another big card. I think it's fairly interchangeable with the other cards that I've named. There's like pros and cons to playing one or the other. The con kind of being that your opponents will know about it, but also you'll know exactly how much power you can expect to get out of it, and it's fine. It's a 6-cost card, so you can play it on turn 5 in Arishem, and people aren't even playing Shang-Chi now, so it's kind of free. Blob obviously has the huge downside of being Shadow Kingable. Here is another Galactus Fantastic Four First Steps deck. This one's a Wiccan deck. It is a Quicksilver Wiccan deck, and this one's running a little bit more card generation on the 2-cost slot. Adam Warlock, Merlin, and Penny Parker all will generate cards, and then we've got Copycat, Mobius, Rogue, and Shadow King, as well as Eliath. So almost half this deck is tech, though Copycat isn't really tech, depending on what you're playing against. Sometimes it is. If your opponent's playing a bunch of tech, right? Or if it like steals an Iron Man, that can just be very powerful. Plus, you know your opponent then isn't going to draw Iron Man. But I think the big news here is Loki. That is not a card that we have seen yet this tournament. It is a card that I've seen pick up a little bit of steam recently. Did somebody play Loki against me yesterday? No, I'm talking about in my video yesterday. I don't believe so. But Loki is pretty good into a metagame where people are playing stuff like this. And if you think a deck like this is good, which we've seen a few decks that look like this, then Loki is a pretty good choice to put in those decks, because then you can steal all of your opponent's cards and just have them be one cheaper. You can also like Loki's reasonable against a fair amount of like ongoing decks. It's not the best when people are playing, I guess, like parasitic or really synergistic strategies. It's not the best against move, for instance, but it is just good if your opponent is playing good stuff. Like Arishem Thanos. Arishem or Thanos or Arishem Thanos. Loki is really, really good against. We've seen most of these cards so far, everything except for Kohori, so I won't talk too much about it there, but Zombies Go Nom Nom, fellow content creator, rocking the Arishem. Our first Mr. Negative player here from Grumpy. We're about like 2/3 of the way through this video at this point, and we see a Mr. Negative deck. Nothing crazy about this. I guess maybe Rogue's a little bit crazy now that it no longer gets a discount from Mr. Negative. You are purely playing Rogue as a way to say, hey, some of my opponents might go over the top of me even though I'm playing Mr. Negative. That's kind of the tricky thing about Mr. Negative. It's not always the biggest guy in the room at this point, so packing a Rogue in there does seem reasonable. I'm a little bit sketchy on Mr. Negative, specifically because relying on magic when so many players in tournaments love to play Merlin and Thanos can be really tough to make sure you're seeing a 7th turn of the game. But they're 3-1 and the deck can certainly get it done. Another mostly stock move list. We see the Juggernaut has been cut here for an Aranya, and otherwise, yeah, lock stock. Now we have Quicksilver Domino Wiccan, another step up, our first Domino here from Zalay, a bunch of 3-cost cards, Cassie for Arishem and for Cerebro, and if you can put a minus point on the Human Torch, it's not bad either. I don't think that Cassie is doing too much outside of those 3 archetypes. No, nothing else that I can think of. Copycat, Mercury, Shadow King, Speed, all fairly straightforward cards. Otherwise, just Domino as a means to then play. Well, there's no Mobius here. So it really just lets the entire curve be a lot higher and makes the deck a little bit more consistent in some ways. It actually does decrease your chances of playing Wiccan on turn 4 since there's just less permutations. It just changes the math slightly, but still a respectable take on Wiccan. Now we have Danish. I like the dice logo in the top corner there. Danish is, of course, playing Hela, and this is, more power to him. I was not sold on Hela for this event. Obviously, I considered it. I top 16 a Golden Gauntlet qualifier with Hela. Interestingly, it should be noted that Danish did not play in that event, so I kind of won in his stead, and then he was able to qualify at the next event. And this is mostly the list that I had played in the previous event, except we have cut the, and I don't mean we, Dennis did this all on his own. I don't want to take any credit here. He's cut the Emperor Hulkling for Alioth. And there is some cool synergy here with Alioth and Supergiant, just being further disruption in that regard. And he just feels like Alioth is, you also have the ability to turn 5 Alioth off Corvus Glaive. Sorry, that felt like a tongue twister. I think I said every word correctly, though, and just overthought it in my head. But if you have not been familiar with the rest of this deck, Alioth is the only new inclusion. I've played it and featured it a bunch on my channel. It's still really solid. I was a little bit afraid of this deck's ability to compete with move decks, just in terms of pure points. But Dennis says, you know what? I'm going for it, and this is my favorite archetype, so I'm going to play it, and they are doing well with it. I did see up until yesterday, they were considering playing Lady Deathstrike instead of Legion, but did ultimately opt to go for the Legion strategy. Legion does a number of things. It depends which archetypes you think you're going to wind up seeing the most. It's good. It's not actually good against Cerebro, I should tell you, because if you make all 3 locations the same, like Nidavellir is a bad location against Cerebro. But if all 3 locations are Nidavellir, then Cerebro says, okay, I don't care. Then now I'm playing Cerebro 7 or Cerebro 8 or 9. Like, it just doesn't matter if you pump all of their cards equally. But Legion can be good. It can be good against anybody if you just find a good location. And there's a lot more good locations for this deck because they have the ability to generate a bunch of power without playing cards. So something like Luke's Bar or Death's Domain, Hela can get around super easily. I love this deck. I love Legion. I'll regret slightly not playing this deck, but, Danish is the master of Hela, so we will let him have his moment here. Next, we have Arishem from Bad Musician, and mostly straightforward cards here. Emperor Hulkling taking up the title for the big card at the top of the helm here instead of what did we just see, Galactus in a recent RSM deck. The two new cards to note in this deck list though are Quake as a tech card that we probably don't see enough of, and also M'Baku in RSM. Your opponents will know it's coming in an open deck list format like this, but it's still very cool to just have a 3 bonus power that you can count on that you are not super likely to draw in your big RSM deck. That is the whole idea there. Then we have another Wiccanless Wiccan deck, but with, I think, slightly different card choices than we saw in the last one. It's just like good stuff tech here from Gamer, and yeah, I don't have too much to say about it. Like, we've seen all of these cards, except actually we've not seen Daredevil. Okay, so this deck is leaning a little bit more on Supergiant. It's not playing anything crazy like Ronin or whatever to go super over the top, and just playing Scarlet Witch as a card. Wow, I love that. I mean, Scarlet Witch is a good and underrated card, I think. It's good against Cerebro and can also just win random locations like Luke's Bar and Death's Domain that I was just talking about. Also shuts down Limbo and shuts down the Storm War Machine combo. So Scarlet Witch doing some cool stuff here for only 2 energy. Daredevil also does some cool stuff. It allows you to manage priority, which can be really, really important with Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Supergiant, and also allows you to see what your opponent has played during the Supergiant turn. So that is a really interesting angle to it all. And yeah, cool deck here from Gamer. Not really like anything super splashy or spectacular. Just like a medium Iron Patriot deck, even too. Plays Iron Patriot. And if you can play the Iron Patriot on Bob, that's pretty good. But then like you can't snap that, so that's awkward. But yeah, just and a few card choices that we haven't seen up until this point as well. So that is a lot of fun. And what are we looking at here? Another sort of Wiccanless Wiccan deck that is fairly, and we see a lot of similar cards in these Wiccanless Wiccan decks. Negasonic, Mercury, and Iron Patriot are the main standouts. Merlin, always a good card. Luna Snow getting played here as well, which is definitely interesting. And this is actually our first Gwenpool, which is, yeah, like not really even having any synergy in this deck other than potentially being able to keep a little bit more of your power in hand. I guess the combo is you can Gwenpool to pump up Herbie, and then you can play Herbie on turn 5 and then hope that on turn 6 it has the double my power mode, but that is like very, very inconsistent. This is just like the tech that Cinderpuff thought was relevant and a little bit of like consistent power. I don't really have like a term for that other than like mid-range stuff. You know, I described it earlier as trying to hit 20 power in 2 locations every game. This deck doesn't seem like it's doing that though. This deck seems like it's doing like 16 power in 2 locations every game with a little bit more tech potentially. And that can work. I mean, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, Shadow King, these cards can just win locations and win games because of that. We have a almost stock move deck here from Omelas, but Merlin added to it. So the cut here is that Cloak. Cloak has been cut, and one other card has been cut, Dagger. Dagger has also been cut here for Aranya, going only for Human Torch and Spider-Punk. Okay, interesting. I like cutting the Cloak. Cutting the Dagger? We'll see. Now we have a Polo Sensei. As we get to the end of this now, I'm probably just going to run through these because, like, we've seen this deck already before. We have seen Strange Supreme Thanos, so Polo Sensei also playing it. I don't... Yes, it was a Merlin. It was a Merlin Wiccan deck that we saw previously. Might even be like nearly the same deck list. I think it is. Yeah. Cosmic Ghost Rider, I think, was in the previous one too. I'm willing to say it's probably the same deck list here from Polo Sensei, but still cool. This one is definitely the same deck list. No, okay, it's not. It's a Rania instead of the Juggernaut, but, you know, more or less stock move there. Here we have from Iris a Bullseye Silver Surfer deck. I did reach out to Iris because I really liked the deck that they played in the last event, and this time they have added the first Ghost Rider as just like, you know, a 2/6. It's pretty good when it discards a Marumasa Shard. It's just putting a bunch of power on the table, and I believe that the previous version had Gambit in it, but I can't say that super confidently. Now, this deck is mostly a Dakin deck, and we've got Dakin, Grandmaster, Frigga, Moon Girl, and then Agony to get you even bigger Dakins, and then Bullseye to discard all of those Marumasa Shards, as well as the first Ghost Rider, which always discards the lowest power card in your hand, so it will always discard the Marumasa Shards, potentially having a 50-50 with Surge on the final turn. But this deck is all about making big Dakins, multiplicative power. The backup plan is Silver Surfer Sebastian Shaw, with Silver Surfer also being a way to pump up your Dakins. Really cool list. Happy to see that Iris is 3-1 with this again. I reached out because I was also playing Silver Surfer, and I sent Iris my deck list, and I was like, what are your thoughts and what are you playing? And I tried to see like, okay, could I like put these decks together somehow, because I really do like Bullseye Dakin. I'm impressed with their ability to get here. No tech in this deck at all. The only tech I will say is like Luna Snow can kind of be tech, and I only bring that up because like multiple times I was playing Luna Snow into like Nidavellir as a or I guess it's really just Nidavellir, huh? It might just be Nidavellir. Okay, so this deck really does not have tech in it, but yeah, really doesn't at all. Okay, and yeah, just trying to go over the top with Dakin and having some success with it. So more power to them. Here is Sizer playing Move Bounce. I wasn't sure if this was going to be Sizer or Kingpin. They are both playing the same deck list, from what I can tell here. Yes. So it is Move Bounce, Vulture, Dagger, Human Torch, a bunch of cards that have on reveal, move a couple cards that don't say on reveal with Aranya, Madam Web, and Sparky, and then Beast Toxin, Frigga to repeat some of those cards, and Sage as just another really powerful on reveal effect. I don't have too much more to say about this deck because it is a deck list that we've seen a lot of before, but here is what I will say. So Sizer and Kingpin, or more Kingpin, because he is who I talk with directly a little bit more. Kingpin likes this version of move specifically against Mercury. They felt that Move Bounce had a little bit more play against Mercury than your typical move decks. So that was the reason that they decided to go for this, because you could always pick up your cards and move them again. They're not just forever stuck in the Mercury location. We are rounding out this video here though, but not before we take a look at a Nightmare deck. That is pretty cool. No Legion in this. I saw the War Machine, thought initially that it was a War Machine Legion combo, but no, this is just War Machine as a means to play the Infinite, and then Nightmare as a means to get brand new abilities on all of your huge expensive cards. It's also a Luna Snow Blink deck as a different way to get a bunch of power on the board. Also has Lockjaw Electro and Electro War Machine, so we're attacking from a bunch of angles here. It's cool. I like it. I like it here from Hazlek. I have been looking for an excuse to play Nightmare, and of the different decks in this video, this might honestly just be one that I go for. Another combo that you do have access to is Destroyer killing your Electro. That could be an interesting game plan. And otherwise, you're potentially just like playing Destroyer on top of the Electro if the Electro is your, want to call it your Herald, right? From EXO, who is not a name that I recognize, they are playing, oh, this is a brew. Okay, this is a Vicky Hand Moira deck with Pixie at the top of the curve. So, or I mean Pixie, not at the top of the curve, but to mess around with a bunch of things. So the main reason that you play Pixie is you feel Mobius is a good card into the metagame, and you want to have some unpredictable power outputs. But the cool interaction here is Pixie plus Mobius means that all of your costs are randomized, which means Moira X could get more expensive while Lady Deathstrike gets less expensive. But, so here's the original cost. Pixie says swap them, and then with a Mobius in play, you bring the top ones down. So everything costs the less of their two potential costs. And then we're also doing like a little bit of just a Vicky Hand game plan here. There's a lot of snap equity in that. You see a hand that's Moira, Carnage, and Vicky Hand. Okay, you won the game. And that could just be very, very powerful in ways that your opponents can't really predict. So that I think is like kind of the game plan here. A bunch of power in ways that your opponents can't predict, plus just a little bit of tech, Mobius, Shadow King, and Cosmic Ghost Rider, as well as Lady Deathstrike. Let's not forget that that is tech as well. Cool. Ooh, what is this name? Uti Uth. Okay, that is definitely a new name for me as well. And a forgotten archetype. We've got a Quicksilver Domino Wiccan deck, but that is holding together a Fenris Wolf package. We've got Fenris, we've got Gladiator, we've got the Shang-Chi, and we've got Cannonball with Mercury, of course, and Shadow King. So a lot of tech in this one with speed and Cosmic Ghost Rider and Copycat to fill it out. I like this. I think that this is something that I could also see picking up a lot of steam if it does well, because it's just it's just so much tech that people do tend to like these types of decks. This deck is worse than it was the last time that you could play it. Actually, this deck did not used to be a domino deck. That's the big change. Fenris Wolf used to cost 2, and was this a Merlin deck? I don't remember if this was a Merlin deck. I'm trying to remember the other cards that were in Fenris Wiccan. I cannot remember. Oh, Mercury was also a 2-cost card. Yeah, okay, so there were just more 2-cost cards. Now those are not 2-cost cards, so you have to throw Domino in here, but you can still put it together, it looks like, in a reasonable way. Now we have a second Loki player here with Lizardo playing Arishem, also Kang, our first Kang gamer, and a pretty straightforward Arishem list otherwise, but Kang is cool. Kang is cool. Quinjet to go along with that Kang. Luna Snow seeing a lot of play in this tournament. Ramp is good. It's funny. Her symmetrical ramp can be a little bit awkward. The idea is that you are going to try to take bigger advantage of the Luna Snow than your opponent. I think turn 4 Sarah, I mean, this is, similar to the deck that I was playing. Turn 4 Sarah is a huge way to take advantage of the Luna Snow. And then we've got Infinity Ultron as another big card here to curve out into, and then you have enough time to play all of your stones and things. And then we are just playing like a little bit of tech, a little bit of Werewolf by Night. Actually, not that much tech. It's CGR and Enchantress and Shadow King. Okay, and Killmonger, 4 pieces of tech. I think we can call that a little bit of tech at that point, 1/3 of the deck. But we also have Merlin plus Werewolf by Night as sort of a pretty respectable points package that we oftentimes see paired with even more on reveal cards, but I mean, every other card in the deck other than Serra is an on reveal card, and Infinity Ultron makes some stones that are on reveal. Penny Parker makes the on reveal spider. So there is a lot of on reveal here. All right, fair enough. We are rounding out the video. I think there are 4 more decks. Here is the deck that I think won the last Golden Gauntlet qualifier. Golden Gauntlet qualifier number 3, I believe, was this exact list. I'm trying to see if there's any standouts. Nope, I think it's just straight up Khonshu discard. There we go. Now we have Spectrum with Stardust included, probably just taking the spot of Mercury. And yeah, Stardust does prevent a lot of different things actually that you don't realize, but nothing in this deck. That is for sure. Whoa, okay, Fatal Omen has done something wacky here. What have they done? What have you done, Fatal Omen? So, this is I'm gonna have to take a second to take this in. That's why I'm looking at all 50 decks here, because there are some diamonds in the rough, and this deck only has 1 move card in it, Human Torch, and then 5 cards to move the Human Torch: Madam Web, Sparky, Ghost Spider, and Aranya. Cool. One other interesting thing is if you can fill up the rightmost location, you can play Sentry, you won't get the Void, and then you could just move those cards out of there. So that is potentially what this deck is looking to do, is like play a bunch of cards and have a bunch of cards in the rightmost location, which is usually what a Cersei Sentry deck is trying to do. I think this might actually be our first Cersei deck, come to think of it. I do think it is. So this deck has Merlin, Annihilus, and Cersei, all as means to get rid of the Hood and Sentry's the Void, and that means that you'll want to play your Hood over on the right, so that way you can Cersei the Sentry and the Void. I love Cersei. I think that she is a really, really fun card, and once you've used your Sparky and you've used your Aranya, why not try to polymorph them? This is cool. This is a brew here from Fatal Omen. I don't really see how the Heimdall fits into it all, but I guess they just wanted like an expensive card. You can't play any Merlin spells alongside it, so I don't love that. But I think what this deck does have going for it is a lot of unpredictability. Because I'm thinking now, maybe your opponent sees that you are playing Annihilus, and then you play the Sentry, and they go, oh, I need to fill up the rightmost location so that the Void doesn't come to my side. And then you play Heimdall and you say, okay, you just filled up the right location. I have nothing at the right location. And I'm actually going to dip and I'm going to Cersei my Void, and then I'm going to move it to the left. So that way, all of the power that you spent there is just for naught, because you're beating me at a location where I have 0 power. I think that's the idea. And just that the ability that you can sometimes do that, but you don't have to. Heimdall can be interesting in that way, when your opponent knows that it's coming and you kind of like use that to your advantage. We have a second Mr. Negative deck here, also playing Super Scroll instead of the Rogue, and also Cassandra Nova. I don't believe that was in the previous deck. I don't even know if Taskmaster was, but Mr. Negative's a fairly straightforward deck otherwise. And this is only the second Super Giant Sauron deck, I think, that we've seen here from Your Name. It does seem to be, I think, the exact same list that we looked at earlier. I do believe so. I can't remember if Red Guardian was there, but I do think that this is the exact same list. So we'll move on. And this might be the final list that we are looking at here. Let me see. Did I save Kingpin for last? No, there are still 2 more, but Kingpin looks to be playing. Oh no, Kingpin added in Grandmaster. That's right. That's right. No Vulture, Grandmaster for Kingpin. Grandmaster can do a lot of stuff. can move over your Sage for some big points. It can repeat a Beast effect, or you can Grandmaster the Beast, or you can Beast the Grandmaster. A lot of different options there. Now we have Biggish, who is also playing... Oh no, okay, that's why this is familiar to me. Biggish beat me in the tournament. Biggish is also playing Jennifer Kale and Luna Snow, which I was playing in this event, but they're just going way over the top of me, and this deck does some cool things. They have Destroyer, which is just huge now, and Magneto when I was playing a Silver Surfer deck. They can also ramp out into a Professor X to either protect their cards from a big Destroyer or just win a location that your opponent doesn't play to. They got me with that once or twice. And yeah, then it also just tries to go way over the top with Wave. You can use Destroyer to destroy your Electro. You can also blink your Electro. That's a classic combo. You can protect your cards with armor instead from your Destroyer. And Magneto just provides like a little bit of disruption. And then you can also totally flip the script on your opponent by using Doctor Strange and moving your big cards around. Cool list here from Biggish. I do think that we've seen Biggish play Destroyer in these events before. They just like to play big cards and ramp, and they can certainly be very good into these metagames where people are playing Shadow King and like these tech card decks that try to just put I said earlier, oh, this looks like a deck that puts 16 power in every location and maybe wins with tech or something. Okay, you put 16 power at a location, I play a Destroyer. Like, you just win if that's what your opponent is trying to do. So this is a very good take on the metagame, and I'm a little bit biased because they kicked my butt. And my deck was kind of like built to take on the metagame, and then this just came out of left field and took me out instead. We will then finish off with a Moonstone deck that is a Vicky Hand Moonstone deck. That's right, I did see this one briefly earlier, and that's like partially why I wanted to take a look at all of these decks, because I was like, even down to the 56th deck that we were looking at in this video, there is some interesting stuff. This player is actually 2-1-1, and I'm about to refresh the standings and just take another real quick look after round 5 to see which players are still undefeated and still X-1. It's going to be like half of the content for this video, but I just wanted to start recording early because I knew that I would have a lot to say about a lot of these players' decks and wanted to shine a spotlight on a bunch of different strategies that are cool to play right now in Marvel Snap. So I guess just a few words on this is that you are not super heavy into the Vicky Hand package with this, but you can still go like Vicky Hand Frigga, and then you can put those Vicky Hands under Moonstone. You can also copy them with Moon Girl, and you can use Moonstone to copy Quinjet, which can be a really powerful interaction. So sometimes this is even a bigger Vicky Hand deck than like the traditional Bear Vicky Hand decks. We've seen, I think, 4 different Vicky Hand decks, and they were all different, right? We saw Victoria Hand as just like a card in my Wiccan deck because all of my other 2-cost cards create cards. We saw Bear's traditional Misery Vicky Hand. We saw this, which is the Moonstone Vicky Hand. I have seen this before, but it's cool. And then a Moira Vicky Hand. So a lot of different rooms for experimentation, and honestly, like if you go, we looked at 1/4 of the decks in this event. There were about 200. If you look at the remaining 150, I promise you, there are some other sweet decks in this event. I will leave a link to the full player, like everybody's deck lists in the video description. But real quick, maybe not real quick even, I just realized how long I spent recording that. We are now actually on round 7 of the tournament now. So we know that ACP and Hanifer are both 6-0, And we have a pretty decent idea of what the top 16 is going to be. There are a few other players potentially on the bubble and looking to play in, but we'll take a look here real quick just at the players, and it's probably most of them that were at the start of this video, though I do see Grompy. They were Mr. Negative, right? I see Zapgaze, so we will just take a look. I think I already clicked Knife Hand. If we look at them twice or 3 times, I suppose that's also fine. All right, let's just go through these decks again real quick so we can see what is actually making it out. On top, 6-0, we have a Zombies deck, is one of the 2 players playing to go undefeated going into the top 16 portion from ACP. Honifer is the classic Annihilus Werewolf deck. It's still kicking. Debris is a new addition, but it still works. Now we have Polo playing the throwback Thanos Wiccan. Very cool. Gamar with this super giant, fairly I'll say unassuming looking deck here, really. It's a super giant Iron Patriot deck with Daredevil and Scarlet Witch. I'm sure they've come up with some cool Scarlet Witch plays. The Nightmare deck is looking to top 16 from Hazlek. Beautiful. All right, well, I already wanted an excuse to play Nightmare and this deck list, so I'm going to do it. This is going to be my new deck for the next few days. Cougar, I did see, is still on top of the standings here with their zombie Scarlet Witch C4. This is something I'd also love to try. I think we do have Amalas as a move player playing. Oh no, this is not the most straightforward move. This is the move with Merlin in it. Okay, cool. Merlin move, cutting that cloak. I did say cutting that cloak could be good. Grompy was our Mr. Negative player with Rogue and Esme. Then we have MSC with Thena Invisible, or Jocasta Invisible Woman. Kolana. This is a little bit more of a straightforward move, just Aranya, no Juggernaut. Yeah, looks good. I think actually that seems like the more stock list at this point. I think that is fair to say. Zombies go Nom Nom with the big deck Thanos RSM and a bunch of tech on top of that. Okay, this is also, the stock move list from Nathiel here. And another move deck, Evazord. There is going to be some move in the top of this tournament. It is much higher represented than you would have guessed otherwise from this video. Zapgaze is a Cerebro 3 deck, still hanging in there. There was not that much Cerebro representation in this video as a whole, but the Cerebro that has been doing well is continuing to do well. Angel's Word or Angel Sword, I actually don't know what they go by, is still crushing it here with this interesting take on Wiccan Thanos. And I don't really see too much that the armor is doing, but a decent amount of tech can still hold it down regardless. How many more decks are we looking at? Oh yeah, we're going to look at Knife Hand's deck twice, right? They are playing Legion Infinite here. And then we have Teebs still killing it with RSM. Very nice. And this was just, like a smaller version of the Infinite War Machine deck. A little bit more towards the tempo and potentially the storm plan of it all. That's right. Then we have Watermelon with, again, move. What is this cutting? Okay, yeah, this is the Aranya without Juggernaut version. So maybe this is the stock list. They're both the stock list. And finally, we have Izak, who is running Ongoing with Onslaught. Real big tribunal-less tribunal, I called it. That is going to be it for this video. I am going to call it there, and we'll see which of these decks winds up on top. There are a lot of really cool decks making it into the top 16. Not exactly sure how this will shake out, but there's also a lot of really cool decks that did not make the top 16 and even did not make this video. I was gonna make this live already, but I figured I already put so much time into this video. Let's just go through the decks that are 4-2 or better again and see if there's any new standouts. And I found 5 decks that I had not covered in the main portion of this video. So we're going to tack this on to the end, tack this onto what has previously been recorded here. And speaking of tacking something on to something previous, terrible transition there, but Man Spider is a really cool new card in Marvel Snap, just released at the start of this season. Because of that, I think its potential is still a little underexplored, but we have EG Source, I think might be how you pronounce this name, with a merge deck. That is what Man Spider is good for. You play with all of the cards that merge, and every time it merges with anything, it gets to double again. So Agony, Hulkbuster, Penny Parker, and Symbiote Spider-Man all doing some cool stuff. You can also use Man Spider to eat Electro and then have an extra energy without worrying about the restriction that Electro has. You have Ravonna as well as a way to get some discounts on your cards, and then Lizard and Gladiator are just cheap cards with high power that you can attach onto. Absorbing Man can re-trigger Arnim Zola or re-trigger Man Spider. You have curves like Ravonna into Gladiator, into Man Spider, into Arnim Zola, into Absorbing Man on Man Spider or Arnim Zola, and a lot of powerful things that you can do with that. You do want to be a little bit careful. It's fine. It's fine. But I'm just thinking, like, your Man Spiders could then attach to your Arnim Zolas. You can also Taskmaster your big Man Spider. A lot of really cool plays that also I didn't get into, where you set up for things where basically, like, you play Agony or Symbiote Spider-Man in one location, then you play a Gladiator or Lizard in a different location, and then you play Man Spider in the same location as your Agony or Symbiote Spider-Man. It attaches to the Gladiator, pulling it over, doubles up to 18, and then attaches to the Agony. My dog's trying to get in the room here. She said, "You've been recording for too long." All right, I'll get to her in a second. We've got a few more lists to go over real quick, Lily, and then I will take care of you. We have a Pixie list that is a little bit more straightforward, just because it's playing a bunch of like more mid-rangey cards, but still has the unpredictability of a Pixie. We also have a Red Wing list, which I think is also like a pretty underexplored deck, but now there is an additional card that you want to Zorn with Spider-Punk that could make these lists a little bit stronger, and you're trying to cheat out a Galactus, an Infinite, or a Heimdall for some fancy moves, and it's also a Luna Snow Blink deck where you will always blink into one of these 6-cost cards. We also have another... Oh, I included this one because it has the Superior Spider-Man in it. It's just a Galactus Strange Supreme deck. It also includes the Thing, Fantastic Four First Steps. Haven't seen that guy in a second. And we also see a new inclusion here with Superior Spider-Man. The main cards that you have that can trigger Superior Spider-Man on turn 4 are really just Strange Supreme if you've already played a Stone, and that's really it. Or Surge if you surge into a Stone and then play the Stone plus Superior Spider-Man on turn 3. Because it's a Thanos deck, it's a little bit bigger and you're not going to be as consistent with it. But this deck is also playing Hope Summers, which is good with stones as well, because you can dump a bunch of stones into that location, and Luna Snow. And you can see the curve of this deck is pretty high for a Wiccan-less Thanos deck, instead opting to curve out on these 3-cost cards. Oh, I still have 2 more decks to look at. All right, so we have, a Fantasticar Jocasta deck that plays Fantasticar instead of Omega Sentinel. Pretty straightforward other than that. And we have from Fry the Chicken here, a Domino Quicksilver Wiccan deck that is also an Ajax Affliction package. all cards that we've seen before, just not quite in the combination that we have seen them with previously. Like I said, I mostly just wanted to talk about Man Spider a little bit and shout out some players that didn't talk about in the bulk of this video. The top 16 of this tournament is about to start, so when this video is live, I thought I would get it out earlier than this, but the top 16 is currently underway, and we'll figure out which of these decks actually places on top. I will tell you that ACP did defeat Hanifer in the 7th round, so this is our undefeated deck list here. I might have already said that. No, I didn't. But this is our undefeated deck list. It's zombies. Zombie Scarlet Witch, Zombie Sentry, Zombie Giant Man, and Zombie Mr. Fantastic alongside the Hunger. We're all able to get it done. The main combo with this deck is you make a huge Zombie Giant Man and then you do it again with Absorbing Man. And a little bit, the smallest amount of tech here with Cannonball and Mercury, and then Surge as a little bit of a discount. Spider-Ham also as interaction. They just felt that Spider-Ham was good and cheap enough. It can trigger your Zombie Scarlet Witch, so you can hang on to it, and it can do some cool stuff. And you can also Merlin spell it as well, so that's a cool interaction too. Okay, that is really going to be it for this video. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.